device known as the MIG Switch. Now, if you're looking carefully on here, I don't know how great the camera.
There's an SD card. I've been looking at getting a MIG Switch. I actually saw one recently, but I held off just because, like, nah, I don't need it right now. There is an SD card that inserts into it.
Is focusing.
Micro SD.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is a cartridge that allows you to basically play your ROMs on an actual, official, honest-to-God, halal Nintendo Switch. Now, you might be wondering, but Muda, how did you get something like this? How is this so freely accessible?
What's the Fairly Odd Parents meme? Internet? How do you get this kind of device? Internet?
Now, I want to start off the video by saying piracy is wrong, okay? And I genuinely do not want to promote it. If you ever watched my content where I talk about modding, consoles like the Wii U, like the PlayStation 3, like the Xbox 360, like the 3DS, like anything, I pretty much mention everything you need to, except the whole part about downloading ROMs and running them through loaders, okay? It's not something that I necessarily want to make as a focal point on the channel. No. It's not just because it's against YouTube's terms of services, it's just because anytime you deal with this kind of content, people who genuinely, like to conflate game preservation with piracy always use that as sort of like an attack towards the entire video's credibility. So anyways, this is MIG Switch, okay? Now, this is a $64 cartridge, and if you're looking at it carefully, it looks like a standard Nintendo Switch cartridge.
Yeah.
Now, to give you an idea about how this works, okay, Nintendo has had plenty of leaks, okay? One of them was the datasheet leak back in the day where effectively the hardware specifications for the Lotus 3, which is the Switch game card, actually were leaked. Now, there's a lot of, hardware specifications, and I'm not an expert in any of this by any imagination, but they basically say the bridge, ASIC, is the hardware inside the Switch console that reads the game card. So you can think of it as a bridge between the console and the game. It has been designed by the combination of Megachips Corp and Macronix International.
So, this is not something that I understand. As Muda's saying, this is not something he specializes in. This is a gold mine to somebody, though.
The ASIC has two interfaces. The eMMC interface for connecting the console to the Nintendo Game Memory interface connects to the card. So basically the idea is the people behind this MIG Switch effectively had dug into how the Lotus 3 game cards had worked and basically had replicated the ability for you to run your own ROMs. And as far as the Nintendo Switch is considered, this poor little device, it thinks when I put this cartridge in, it's the real deal. Now, I want to start off by saying this comes with some caveats, okay? Now, I've seen Linus kind of talk about this on his channel where he says, 5 mods Nintendo wishes were illegal. So this is the MIG Switch, by the way, and again, he's showing it, and he talks about the relation it has to an individual known as Gary Bowser, who, as you know, has had his life ruined, basically, by Nintendo. But obviously, he talks about this whole situation, discuss how this cartridge works, and...
Can you just talk about the irony that it's Bowser? Talk about the irony there.
Where I definitely have a disagreement with Linus is that Nintendo doesn't just wish this was illegal. I am sure by how this has been circumvented, this probably is actually illegal, okay?
Probably.
Now, the reason I'm talking about this like this is because I've only really figured this out after the fact.
In all fairness, my opinion on modern Nintendo is at some point they're going to consider my physical copies of retro games. So I gotta look over there. Both my Japanese and English copy of XD Gale of Darkness and Colosseums, right? Japanese Fire Red and Emerald, English Fire Red and Emerald, all authentic, right? At some point, I can't wait for them to just be like, nah, this is not okay to have. Something is expired somewhere. Look, Nintendo and lawyers, man, like they really get that legal team out. It would not surprise me someday if I were just suddenly like owning like contraband for owning physical materials.
I bought this product like 3 months ago, and let me explain how shady this process was. I bought it 3 months ago, kind of forgot that it was coming in the mail until my mom had come to visit me.
Right.
When my mom visited me, the literal package was like this tiny little like pouch you got. It couldn't have been larger than like an envelope.
Nice.
And, it kind of looked like you were buying drugs off of the dark web. My mom hands it over to me, I open it up, it's actually literally the MIG Switch console device, or this cartridge. Now, honestly, this is a cartridge that I would typically use just to play my own games. So games like Shin Megami Tensei 3, Diablo 3 Eternal Collection.
This is what I would do. I would just dump my games onto the cart to save on storage space, right? instead of having to, eject Animal Crossing to input Pokemon Shield, to eject that, to put in Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, right? With either or, right? To eject that, to put in Legends Arceus, right? To have it on one thing. And I mean, Nintendo does it themselves. They have the Mario 3D collection with 64 Galaxy and Sunshine in an emulator on a cart, right? That's all I would use it for if I had this device. Like, I'm not opposed to paying for stuff. In fact, I've paid out the nose for old Nintendo stuff. See my entire list of partial Nintendo things, Pokemon that I've bought, right? I'm not opposed to paying the price, but you have to make it available and available at a recent price. And I've been vocal about this. I'm hoping I can one day manifest it, much like before Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire came out. Remember, people were putting like the summoning circle with Rayquaza, Groudon, and Kyogre, and then Oraz came out and they're like, oh my god, it actually worked, right? Manifesting this here, if you will, the TikTok meme, right? Give us the virtual console port or a cart that is just emulators of XD Gala Darkness and Coliseum. Sure, charge me $100. I bought Final Fantasy Pixel Collection, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the Switch for $100, right? I'd do it. I'd pay $120 for that because it is still less than buying third-party authentic.
Which is brilliant on the Switch. No Man's Sky or Metroid Dread if I'm flying around or, I just want to have all of my games on one cartridge, okay? Basically, I put it in, and I can just play my actual physical games as if I could carry them all with me.
Right.
Versus carrying around each individually expensive cartridge with me. That's one of
which then you argue inside of the Switch cases, you have the little things that you can pop open, but then you do also run the risk of what happens if it drops? You could damage the cart. What happens if somebody steals it, right? What happens? There's a whole thought tree that goes through this, right? I don't necessarily hate the product. I think that it's cool. It's kind of neat. That being said, Nintendo lawyers kind of scare me.
the reasons why I use cartridges like R4s, Gateway 3DSs, MIG switches, so on and so forth. Now, honestly, with the Nintendo Switch basically being sort of abandoned by me, I literally have been playing most of my games on the deck, like
Nice.
LA Noire, but seriously, you know, playing anything on a device where you can store up to like 62 games, plus your emulated stuff, is infinitely better than carrying around any device that still requires physical media in this situation, which is great, but ultimately, even with all of its, you know, capabilities, still is far inferior to, again, the processing power of like a Steam Deck. Anyways, this isn't a Steam Deck versus Switch video.
Is that Halo 4 on his desk underneath his mic? I can't tell. It looks like Halo 4. It looks like there's an M. The weird things that I fixate on, I want to know what that Xbox 360 game is.
Video about how this device has gotten a lot of controversy because, ladies and gentlemen, it is fucking under a lawsuit right now. Nintendo has decided to drop another one of its famous lawsuits against Ryan, who is also known as Modded Hardware. Now, this is a website that anybody could access to, and by the way, any website that I show, I completely disavow. I do not recommend you purchase anything from these sites. So for instance, going to this Modded Hardware website takes me to all of this stuff where you can buy modded Nintendo Switches right here. Now, obviously, in this entire world, you can buy like mod chips for old Switches, for OLED Switches.
So, allegedly, we will have Pokemon players that play in VGC. Allegedly, we have players that will have a second modded Switch in order to like trade their Pokemon to, and then they'll give them the exact Terra shards they need, all the vitamins and stuff like that. I can neither confirm nor deny if this is the fact. Allegedly, from what I have heard and come across, this is allegedly the thing. And at that point, if we consider, well, you having a modded Switch, that just makes you a bad person. No, it means that the game's dumb. I have been very vocal on I'm on Pokemon today because I've just been on very one-track Pokemon, especially with PokeKip starting to be a channel. Like, if you are driving people to mod, to cheat, etc., and there's difference, like cheats back in the day, like Tony Hawk cheats, you put in a thing, or like Spider-Man for like the GameCube PS2, right? Spider-Man 1, and you could input things to get different costumes and stuff. Outside of that, if you are incentivized to get Terra shards, get Mystica Herba, right? Those things, that might be a game problem at that point, right? Let's consider that people generally just want to play the game, and they're fine spending time on a game that either they're invested in or they have fun playing, right? Look at Final Fantasy XIV. Look at Destiny. Look at the people that still play Halo Infinite for some god-awful reason. The people that play Diablo 4, which I don't understand how you play Diablo 4 at this point, but honestly, more power to you, right? Like, when we have to have situations where it's incentivized to have modded Switch, modded hardware, hacks, etc., to just make your competitive scene playable, you're probably doing something wrong. And I think that that's a discussion that needs to get had. As somebody that was a former professor, no, Rave, you don't understand. This is competitive multiplayer, right? Like event status, right? So allegedly, hypothetically, if I was like, hey, my Frostmoth doesn't have any EVs, I can't train it up before this game, let me just trade it over to my modded Switch to that game and just give it a bunch of vitamins and trade it back over, right? This could allegedly happen. This could happen between rounds, right? I can't condone it in good faith, being a former professor, right? I can't say to do that because that's going to be one of those things that, like, well, right into weird territory. And there's been people that rightfully say, you know, I've had comments that are just like, well, Pokemon gatekeeps a lot. And I think it does. I think VGC in competitive Pokemon at this point is really odd. So I understand when Nintendo goes after stuff like this to kind of take all of this, right? Go to your concluding paragraph on this subject, right? I understand why Nintendo goes after this stuff. I understand why players are also driven to this kind of thing. And at that point, how do you make your game? How do you make your product, right? Getting outside of the gaming sphere, how do you make your product to a degree where your players in the game sphere are invested without having to cheat, etc., and you're kind of seen as a jerk for cheating, right? Or hacking or modifying, etc. And as a product, right? How do you make it so that if you're going to sell a product and you're not allowed to modify the product, right? You're not allowed you buy this thing, right? Cool, you have bought this thing. You cannot modify that product. You cannot change any of the coding inside of it. You cannot homebrew anything, right? Like, right? How do you incentivize your customer from doing that? Provide them with a quality product. Am I saying that, you know, you need to be able to spend like 100 Poke-Yen for Herba Mystica? No, I'm fine grinding for stuff. But I think that part of the pain point here comes from a lack of proper design and not being consumer-centric, is how I'm going to word that. And I'm curious what your guys' thoughts on that are.
You can even buy them pre-hacked, pre-modded. So you can just order them as if they were actual consoles and get them sent over. Now, obviously, these MIG Switches have basically been sold out, and they're not bringing any of them back. But it's kind of crazy. Like, I've actually seen them selling 3DSs for $289. I literally showed you how to do this with any 3DS, and these people are basically selling modified 3DSs, you know, on the market.
I wonder if that runs afoul of the whole, like, what Pal World wasn't litigated on because it's not Pokemon, right? People conflate the two, but we've been over it. It's not Pokemon. What was litigated on, or at least what was hinted at being litigated on, was the person doing a paid mod using Pokemon assets ripped from Gen 7. Because now they are taking assets they do not own and charging for them. You see how that works? I wonder if that is what this is run afoul of.
So what I find really wild about this is while Nintendo is suing them, I just want to show you the most insane shit on Amazon. For $30, for $30 right now, some random brand is fucking selling 510-in-1 game cartridges.
How is this legal? So I could tell you Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, when I checked, they were like 400. They think they went down to like 250 each for physical, right? How? This is why Nintendo confuses me as a company. This is being sold on Amazon. I think that Mutahar is right in bringing this up here. I think that this is incredibly fair to bring up. Why is something like this untouched? Why is something like going to eBay, Alibaba, Temu, you know, Amazon, buying a non-authentic Fire Red acceptable, right? Well, Kip, you're just gatekeeping at that point. So let me walk you through this logic, right? People are doing this because of the lack of availability. The reason that Nintendo is looking like they're taking an L here is because they're taking down products that infringe on their copyright, you know, that they don't want this up, right? It's homebrew, hacked, etc. in some capacity, and that's why they're taking it down. You know how you fix this? Just make it obtainable. Hey, Nintendo's doing a limited run on, well, maybe not. Let's even take the physical. Take production logistics out of it, right? Hey, we're adding Pokemon Black 2, White 2 to the Switch. Sure, $70 each. Hey, that's kind of cool. What is it? It's just an emulator, right? Like, I'm sure you could put an emulator on the Switch to play DS games like this, right? And maybe you have the 2 screens top to bottom, right? It's going to be smaller, but did we not have the same thing on the Wii? Did we not have the same thing on the Wii U? Did we not have the same thing on the 3DS, right? 2DS, 3DS, right? Like, you make it available so your consumer can buy it. If you don't make it available, your consumer's going to get that product any way, shape, or form that they can. That's just how people work, right? If I want... how do I word this? I don't want to go into the firearms territory. If I wanted to pick up a pocket analog, right? One of the big Game Boy things that you can play Game Boy carts on, right? If I wanted to pick up a pocket analog and it's off of the site, right? Like, I can't get it through the pocket analog site. Where do I go? eBay, Amazon, local game store. I search online for potential listings, Facebook Marketplace, right? And you bring up a good point. Might as well be asking Sony to port Bloodborne to anything with Heat Death of the Universe. That's the thing, is shit or get off the pot, right? You can bitch about it, but if you're not making it available, you're just creating your own problems. And this is one of those things that just gets me acting up, is people creating their own problems. That's what blows me away, right? I would have less of an issue if these were readily available. The fact that Pokemon Black 2, White 2 as a third-party game are exceeding $200 each is a problem. People can't play these games because they can't afford these games, versus if there was an official release. It's like comment section being like, wow, Kip, you pause a lot. I just want to watch the video. Then go watch the video! I cite it so much because it's such a stupid argument. Do you go to Wendy's and complain that they got burgers? Bro, I went to KFC and they had chicken. What are you expecting? Then go watch the original video. In fact, if you look down in the description down below, you'll see Mudahar's channel, SomeOrdinaryGamers, and this original video linked for your convenience, which, yet again, I see so few React channels doing that, and it blows me away. Like, that's one of those things that I would straight up go on a podcast and talk about. I would absolutely talk about this for an hour and all the how it's so easy. So easy to do, and nobody does it. And we're getting way into the weeds here. We're off topic here. I don't know why Nintendo isn't going after these, because I don't know if they can't go after them. I don't know if it's a foreign company and thus foreign litigation gets a little weird. It's weird. It's probably because they want to go after it. If I had to guess, they probably want to go after it, but they can't go after it. So thus they're going after this MIG company because they can legally go after them, is how I would understand it.
So Nintendo is going after this one company, actually bringing a lawsuit, but yet all of a sudden these companies that exist where they're openly selling fucking literal DS versions of games. We're talking games like Mario and Luigi, Partners in Time, New Super Mario Brothers, Pokemon White, Pokemon Black, Soul Silver, some of their biggest titles. They're just openly fucking selling them.
Unless, hear me out, 10,000 IQ play. This is in fact Nintendo selling this. Obviously, that's a hypothetical. It would be really funny if it was actually Nintendo in a trench coat selling these.
Amazon, you can order this shit right now and it comes to your fucking house. R4s freely sold right here. Let's just, like, imagine having the R4 JIC chips all sold right next to official versions of video games.
That can't be a good look for them, dude. Like, somebody's pissed off. Somebody's jimmies are rustled from that.
It is actually insane how Nintendo does not go after these guys, but instead launches lawsuits. So going back to their lawsuit, the complaints are for trafficking and circumvention devices, copyright infringement, contributory copyright infringement, and breach of contract and tortious interference with contract. So they want a goddamn jury trial in this situation. I'm sure it's all going to probably end in a settlement, but a pretty scary settlement. So to give you an idea, what they talk about is basically Nintendo seeks redress or an immediate stop to willful, unlawful conduct by Ryan, also known as moddedhardware.com. Via the website, defendants sells a variety of products specifically designed to circumvent Nintendo's technological protection.
Okay, your technological protection measures. We've talked about how abysmal the Wii's protections were, right? Not the Wii U, like the original Wii. That was sad. Like, that thing, you sneeze on it, you can circumvent their protection measure. You can homebrew that and jailbreak that real easy. You don't have room to talk here, Nintendo.
Measures. Now, as much as I have a disdain for Nintendo,
Actually, further point, Splatoon 3. Remember when they said you just open up all your ports, your NAT ports, your internet ports? What was the thing they were talking about? You know what I'm talking. Someone in chat's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Splatoon 3 on launch was having connectivity issues, and I think Mudahar actually went over it, where their Nintendo was saying in their help guide, just open up all your ports, and people like Mudahar are like, no, don't do that. No, it's not worth it to do that. I don't know the tech side of things. Somebody's going to know what I'm talking about, and they're going to have a laugh as they see this being written down by Nintendo Legal.
Nintendo jumping into, these R4 cards. They are actually right. If you are violating Nintendo's technological protection measures, they have 100% rights to absolutely shut you down. There's nothing to it. And here they specifically reference that MIG Switch device and the MIG dumper. Devices that I wanted to actually make videos on, but considering that Nintendo is literally going after and suing actual retailers for this, it's scary. It makes me not want to make those videos. And anybody that has made those videos, Linus included, might need to be a little careful. And I think even in his video, he talked about if things are too hot for YouTube, you go to his float plane service. Because again, talking about this kind of stuff and actually showing people how to pirate games or using this kind of stuff is against YouTube terms of services. So what they actually mentioned too is not just reselling those things, but specifically for this site, pre-installing onto hacked consoles unauthorized copies of copyright Nintendo games, they violated their copyrights. If this is true, this is probably the dumbest fucking behavior they can do. But honestly, given the Amazon shit that I showed you, why aren't they going after those crazy brands? They're literally selling 510 in one cartridges for $30.
So here's why I think a lot of people are upset, and I think Mudahar has the right of it. It's if there is infringement going on, if they indeed run afoul of this, Nintendo does have rights to do it. What I think a lot of people are upset about, and rightly so, is that it's not fair across the board. It doesn't make sense, and they're picking and choosing these with seemingly no rhyme or reason. You see how that's going to get confusing and frustrating for a lot of people? The Amazon listing. Why is Nintendo not going after that? Why is Nintendo Legal not contacting Amazon? Why is Amazon not taking it down on behalf, because Nintendo's complaining, right? But they're going after this company. You see that, if you're going to do something, be fair, be consistent. If you're against something, be against it. If you're for something, be for it. I don't know if it's just they don't have money to do all of these. I don't know if it's because it's international litigation. It's harder to go after things like this Amazon listing. But you could reasonably remove the listing. Especially if it's infringing on copyright, right? If, I don't know, even then, if I were to make something like Metallica merch, right? And I shudder at mentioning the M name because I know Metallica makes me, copyright. A migraine. But I think that's protected by merch laws. So hypothetically, I could make homebrew Metallica merch or homebrew Nintendo merch and sell it on Amazon, right? I'd have to look into the terms of service and stuff. But this is getting to really murky territory, and I think that it's fair to be well, why aren't you going after these? Why aren't you going after the fake carts on the fake Game Boy Color carts and Game Boy Advance carts, Fire Red, etc. on Temu, Alibaba, Amazon? Why are you not going after those?
The price of some of the Switch software that you've seen here, and those don't even come with the games, for crying out loud. So in the prayer, they want a preliminary and permanently enjoining defendant, his officers, employees, and all persons acting in concert or participation. They want to basically prevent them for any, further distribution, sale, and provision of those circumvention devices, hacked consoles, whatever. They want the defendant to shut down the website and any social media accounts, communications platforms, e-commerce websites, anything. And then they want defendant to deliver to Nintendo all circumvention devices, so everything in their stock, they want them. But what's even wilder and what's...
Man, it's really upsetting that just before the court case, there was a really unfortunate boating accident, and there were just a lot of... There's a lot of Nintendo consoles that got lost on that boating trip. It's a real damn shame.
Scares the shit out of me is 4. Requiring defendant to provide Nintendo of America with any and all invoices, purchase orders, shipping confirmations, receipts, and any other documentation reflecting revenue received by defendant in connection to those circumvention devices.
So they're just baby IRS at this point. That's terrifying.
Hacked consoles and circumvention services. So immediately it makes me kind of worried a little bit. If you bought your devices from their fucking website, which I know some content creators have,
Allegedly.
then your information in this lawsuit, if it goes to court or even if they settle it, eventually has to go to Nintendo. Now, there's a bit of a fear that Nintendo could choose to go after the actual purchasers, but I consider this to be a little bit unlikely myself, just because.
So Nintendo's also weird though. Let's take for a second. We have Peanut Butter Gamer, right? Loved his content. I loved his content for years. Dude's super cool. He has like hacked Breath of the Wild video, hacked Wind Waker video, right? Hacked Zelda videos, right? And like, I think this is more. I don't know how to really like think of that demand because Nintendo actively works with creators that have hacked consoles. Not saying that Peanut Butter Gamer has a hacked console. Maybe I'm assuming he's just using an emulator with mods and like a load order, right? But like, Nintendo works with creators like this. So once again, we run into Nintendo's being inconsistent, in my opinion. Like, just this is giving me a headache, dude.
Because in the past, I think that, when it came to other lawsuits regarding the R4, I don't think Nintendo really ever went out of their way to go after individuals who are purchasing this. Because honestly, to go after somebody who purchased a third-party piece of hardware, you also have to prove that they were part of piracy. I don't think Nintendo legally is going out of their way to do that. So up until this point, people have been trying to figure out who MIG Switch really is. Who is this one company behind this? And according to Wololo, which is one of the most sought-after websites when it comes to, console modifications, they actually...
That light dimming, that was rough.
Talk about it through, again, a researcher known as Mike Heskin. They actually said, apparently it's possible that After Time X, which is a publication that was basically fucking promoting the MIG Switch when it was first announced, which is how I found out about it, we're just a front pretending to be a regular news site, but really just hyping the Switch. That wouldn't be the first time, and that's basically what Max consoles were. So they were looking through the actual history of the site, and they found out it was pretty dormant in 2019 until in 2023, they could find out that from Brainstorm Network, one of the mail servers was mail.garyopa.com. Now, this is a bit of a scary situation. If you don't remember Gary Bowser, the guy who was sued by Nintendo for basically being a thorn in their ass.
Oh, no.
If Gary was actually behind the MIG Switch, Nintendo, who has already fucked him legally, might choose to completely send that motherfucker to a gulag at this point. So Gary denies this.
Man's gonna disappear. He's gonna be found in a hotel room. His fate was self-inflicted, straight up Boeing status, dude. It's like Mickey Mouse from South Park. It's just Mario. You don't mess with the plumber. Oh man, I would give a lot for a South Park bit on this. Oh my god.
And says that he's not involved with it, and basically it was because of something known as DNS poisoning, which, listen, if that's the case, I really hope my boy Gary isn't behind it, because pissing off Nintendo once and them ruining your life is already bad. Getting Nintendo to actually send you to a gulag or send John Wick to your fucking house, well, that's just the next stage. So yeah.
No, they're gonna be like Wizards of the Coast. They're just gonna send the Pinkertons after him. I never let Wizards of the Coast live that down. It's why I don't buy Wizard products. It's just so stupid.
Yeah, one of the videos that I kind of wanted to make, I'm actually surprised I didn't make it, because I was away for the weekend. I was going to come back and talk about it. It's going to be part of a big thing. I was going to show you some of the cool stuff that you could do. No, it's not happening. And to be honest, given how Nintendo is chasing after these people by searching for purchase orders, makes me a little worried for how far they're going. I don't know why Nintendo would do that, other than maybe to prove how much damage that they might have suffered based on how many devices were sold. But yeah, one of the and you know what? At the end of the day, the Nintendo Switch is at the tail end of its life.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nintendo clearly, in order to protect their brand and property, are absolutely going to be fighting against anything that could let somebody play maybe a late stage Switch game right on their device, without ever purchasing from Nintendo. So yeah, wild shit indeed. Wild day. It's not often that you possess a cartridge that, honest to God, would have you legally in danger from Nintendo. But to be fair, I've been kind of cutting it close. So who knows, ladies and gentlemen? If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like it if you dislike it. This is me, Mutahar, and it's another reminder to show you, if it's any gaming company you don't want to fuck with, it's absolutely Nintendo. I'm out.
Yeah, actually. Dude. If you haven't checked out Some Ordinary Gamers, if you haven't checked out Mutahar, go ahead and check them out. In the description down below, you will see the link to that. This is going to be interesting. I'm going to be following this. Anytime we get Nintendo doing something, especially in regards to legality, anytime we get something like this, I love watching it. I love watching really just Nintendo trying to be consistent. I really wonder like how Nintendo operates. It's an enigma to me. I have not quite solved it yet. But do yourself a favor, go check out Mutahar. Puts out a lot of great content. I don't react to everything he puts out because, one, I want to make sure that there's content that, you know, hey, you guys can go over and you can watch. You can watch without Kip pausing even. And thank you all for watching. Thank you, Mutahar, for putting out an excellent video and something that I'm going to be just following for the next however long Nintendo decides to do this. And I'm out, yo.